May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Gook Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Gook Audio and Gook Archives. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, Gloria Simoneaux. I met her at Tassar in 1972, and Gloria has done a lot of really good work with homeless kids in San Francisco, with kids with cancer, with art projects. She started Drawbridge in San Francisco, and that's still going back in the early 80s. And she started Harambee Arts, which works with kids in ghettos in Kenya. She'll tell you about it. And she has Harambee Arts has a program in Nepal too. I know it's mainly for women who have escaped slavery, prostitution. There's a word for it, I forget. Anyway, and this is a very active program here at Harambee Arts. Anyway, she's going to tell you about it. She's going to tell you about a very interesting life she's had. And so we'll get right into that as soon as we've had our pause to meditate. So when you hear the bell, if you're of such a mind, hit pause and meditate or whatever for as long as you wish. And when you're through with the meditation or whatever, hit unpause. And we'll be here to hit the bell to end the meditation or whatever and give Gloria Simoneaux a call.
Hello.
Well, hi, Gloria. How you doing?
David?
Hi, yeah.
Well, hi.
Wow.
I'm still recovering from COVID over here.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, but doing better.
Oh,
How are you doing?
I'm fine. Katrinka's fine. She remembers you, especially coming into the Panama Hotel in San Rafael. And we're enjoying the coolest time of the year here, windy, really nice. So, Gloria, what are you up to these days?
What am I up to? I am up to making a movie in Kenya and Nepal to document my program there. And just came back from Kenya, where we filmed for 2 weeks. I have a film crew of 2 people, and we're heading to Nepal in a month to continue filming.
Wow. So
Yes.
why don't you tell us what the movie is about? You know, what's your organization and all that and what it does?
Okay. Well, 15 years ago, I was a Fulbright scholar in Kenya, and while I was there, I started a few programs, one for HIV-positive women in a high-security women's prison,
Wow.
a support group. a support group for HIV positive women. And number 2 was working with children in the slums of Kibera, where we painted murals every weekend. And number 3 was working with children with severe autism and other neurological issues and disabilities. So those 3 have developed into a nonprofit I started called Harambee Arts. And Harambee means let's all pull together in Swahili language.
Could you spell it?
Yeah.
Spell the name of the website.
Yeah, exactly. Harambee. Harambee. Let's all pull together.
H-A-R. No, you got to spell it.
Okay. H-A-R-A-M like Mary, B like boy, E-E. Harambee.
And the website is?
HarambeeArts.org.
HarambeeArts.org. Okay. So,
right.
Wow, a film. Very good.
Well, the reason I want to do it is because the organization has expanded, it's grown. The work, the impact that my staff in both of these countries has is so powerful and so huge. And I can't ever find words to describe what the relationships that have been built with children and women who have had trauma. I cannot even explain what it feels like to see my staffs in action. So the only way we can do it is to show it. So that's the point of making the film.
Wow. Well, keep me in touch about it. I'm sure you will.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does one get on the Harambee Arts email list?
Okay, let's see. How does one get on it? I don't know. There's a place that says contact, right? On the top?
You mean just go to the website and figure it out?
Or better, people can just email me at gloria@harambeearts.org.
All right. gloria@harambeearts.org. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But I should say a little bit more about the project.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, you want me to?
Absolutely. You can go on for as long as you want.
Or do you want to ask me questions about it?
No. I want you to tell me what you want to say.
Oh, okay. So, So in Kenya, we have a staff of 12 people plus 4 youth in training. So it's 16 people total. They're all locals, mostly born and raised in the biggest slums in Nairobi. And what I'm most proud about is 4 of my staff were children in the project when they were kids. And now they're adults and they're leading the program. It's very, very satisfying to see and to experience what the staff is doing. It's beyond words. We work with children and women who have serious issues, and we use art, visual arts, dance, music, storytelling, and it gives people a voice. People who don't have a voice with words, it gives them an opportunity to express what's going on for them, their history, their everything. It gives them an opportunity to express themselves very gently, without words. And then we've created a very, very strong community. And then in Nepal, I work with women who have been rescued from sex trafficking. And I've trained 7 of them over the past 10 years, and they now lead groups for women, for mostly young girls who have just been rescued from trafficking from brothels in India. And they use the same techniques that we did together 10 years ago to give them hope and give them a vision for a healthy future. So they take those techniques and carry them into the halfway houses and safe houses and work with girls who are just rescued. And my staff, one of them was 8 years old when she was sold by her father. Sex trafficking is an epidemic in Nepal because of the extreme poverty. And if one girl is sold, the whole family can eat for 2 or 3 years. So that's what happens. And my team, when I first met them, they never thought they would do anything with their lives. And now they're strong facilitators in this process. They get paid. And they're really, really, they know that they're making a difference in the lives of other girls who experienced exactly what they did.
How did you got started in Kenya? How did you get into Nepal? How did that come about?
I was living in Kenya. I was living in Kenya as a Fulbrighter, and after a year and a half, went back to the States, and I was really fortunate to get a position with Save the Children, doing exactly what I do and what I'm trained to do and love to do. So I was sent to Nepal and other countries through Save the Children. So that's how I managed to be introduced to the group of survivors of human trafficking.
Yeah.
Because Save the Children sent me to do a workshop with them over one weekend.
Oh, so Save the Children just sent you there to do some one thing, a workshop.
Well, actually, Save the Children sent me to Nepal for a month to train teachers in remote areas how to work with children who had been affected by these guerrilla uprisings where a lot of people were killed. There was huge trauma. So I went to train teachers on how to use art to help children express the trauma they were holding inside. And then while I was there, Save the Children asked me to do a weekend workshop with survivors of sex trafficking. And I had no idea what to do. I really was nervous. I didn't really want to do it. But you can't say no to Save the Children. So I did, and absolutely became completely invested in this group of women. And Save the Children didn't want to pursue any further work with them. So I told them I would come back individually and work with them, which I did. So that's how it started.
How'd you get funding to go back and work with them individually?
Well, I raised funds. I did it through Harambee Arts by then.
Oh, wait. So wait. You went to Nepal with Save the Children, but you had already started Harambee Arts?
In Kenya.
In Kenya. Did you start Harambee Arts just while you were in Kenya for the first time, just starting to do that?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was working there under the Fulbright Association, and while I was there, I had identified these three projects that I wanted to, these three populations that I wanted to continue working with. And that was outside of the Fulbright, actually. So I just started these programs. And when I came back to the States, I started to fundraise.
Wow.
To keep it going. And I have a lot of friends who believe in my work after 20 years with homeless children and 8 years with children with cancer. A lot of people know about my work. So it wasn't that hard to form a foundation of donors.
Now, so you said a lot of people knew about your work with children with cancer, and what was the other one?
Homeless.
Tell us about that.
Okay.
How did that come about? When did you get into that? And yeah.
Okay. But first, I'll tell you why people like to donate money to me. It's because I'm really cheeky, and basically, I don't take no for an answer. And people are really impressed with my passion. And I have several PhDs in chutzpah, so that's what I do. I'm really, really good at raising funds for projects that I know have to happen.
Yeah.
So in 1981, I guess it was, in San Francisco,
Wait a minute. I want to ask one other question here to sort of locate this. What year did you go to Kenya on the Fulbright?
2007.
2007.
Yeah.
Okay. All
and
right.
I lived there for 2 years almost.
Yeah. Wow. So
and then I got another Fulbright in 2016 to work in Haiti. So I've also done quite a lot of work in Haiti and in a few other Caribbean islands.
Wow.
Yeah. I know, something, huh?
Wow. That's really something. All right. Now, back in 1981. Okay.
Yeah. I had been traveling all around the world. And I came back to San Francisco because my brother and sister lived here. I have no idea what I was going to do. And there was an ad for an art teacher in the newspaper at a small private school in the Sunset District. I applied for the job. I thought I could do that. Applied for the job, and the night before the interview, I got a call saying, well, we can't really afford an art teacher. We need a social studies teacher. So I said, well, that's amazing. I'm a social studies teacher. So we set up an interview. And the next day I went to the library to find out what social studies was.
Right.
And I got the job. And I didn't have a clue about, okay, now what? But I have a lot of self-confidence, so I knew I'd figure something out. One of the boys in my class, there were about 16 children in the class. It was 4th, 5th graders. He had cancer, and he was out every month for a whole week. And he lost his hair, and he was very obviously different and in pain. So I started to visit him in the hospital where he was being treated. And through that, I became introduced to this whole world that absolutely grabbed my attention and just gripped me so thoroughly. There was an oncology unit for children who was kind of stuck way in some area that nobody really wanted to go there. It was isolated, and there were a lot of kids on the ward.
What hospital was that?
California Pacific Medical Center. So I started to volunteer, and I volunteered also at UC, the hospital on the hill, UC Hospital.
Yeah, they have a children's cancer unit. That Meg Alexander managed that for some time. Yeah,
in what capacity?
She managed a house where, or wasn't a house.
Ronald McDonald.
Huh?
Ronald McDonald House.
What?
I know what you're talking about. Ronald McDonald House, it was called.
Oh.
Yeah.
Robert Lytle took me there once. Robert Lytle took me there. And, it was very, very touching. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Well, so I was working at 2 hospitals, but California Pacific Medical Center was really my focus. And
Mm-hmm.
I started going twice a week as a volunteer and bringing all my art supplies. And it was exactly where I wanted to be. I was craving some place where people were really authentic and there was no bullshit. The parents and the kids, and I just felt so comfortable in that environment. People of all kinds of different religions and political outlooks, but they all came together just because their child was suffering. And it
Mm-hmm.
was really just powerful. So I volunteered, and then the hospital put me on staff because what I was doing was really groundbreaking. And pretty soon I was invited to teach the psychiatry interns how to create relationships with children. And I would go to rounds with them, and I would go to tumor conferences and talk about how important it is to just enter a room with a child one-on-one, no white coat, no clipboard, sit down at their level, look in their eyes, and just be there and listen. And most of them couldn't do it. They had too much training. But it was a really big learning time for me. But my biggest learning was from the kids with cancer. They were the biggest teachers I've ever had in my life. They taught me how to be present, how to just stay with the pain because that's what they had, not to leave, even though most people, one would want to leave. I observed people coming into the room to visit, and they would fix the flowers and open and close the window and make some food. But I hardly saw anybody who was just able to sit down with the kids and just be there. And so that became my commitment. I wanted to learn how to do that. So I was 8 years with those kids, and they taught me everything.
Mm.
And that was such a blessing.
Mm.
And of course, I made a million mistakes, and that was okay too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then and then in 1989, I couldn't continue there at a certain point. I went to visit a girl named Gina. She only had one arm. She couldn't speak any longer. She only had one eye. She was lying in the ICU, and I held her hand, and I was saying goodbye to her. And my hand left a print on her hand, a mark of my handprint, because her platelet count was so low. And I walked out of that room and I thought to myself, I've done it. I've made my mark. And now I have to leave here and move on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my last moment. And a year later, I started Drawbridge, an arts program for homeless children, which is still going on 33 years later.
Oh, I remember that. I forgot
Yeah.
about Drawbridge. Right.
So
Yeah.
that was another episode
So
in the life of a wild person.
tell us about Drawbridge.
Well, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do anything quite as devastatingly filled with grief as
Yeah.
sitting with dying children for a while. So I visited my brother Rick, who was a priest. You know Rick.
Oh, yes. Well, he's a priest
Rick.
and he's a doctor who worked with the most down and out people in the Tenderloin. Right.
I visited him in the Tenderloin at a clinic he was working at. And I saw for the first time children who didn't have homes, children who were living on the streets and in shelters with their family. And this was 1989, and homelessness was just really beginning to be an issue. And there was one shelter in the city for families called the Hamilton Family Shelter in the Haight. And I called them on the phone. I said, I can work with the children in your shelter using art. It will relax them. It will give them a space to feel like a child, and which they don't normally get. And if you pay me $10 an hour, I'll have a grant for you in 3 months. And he said, start tomorrow. This was on the phone.
Yeah.
So I started to work there, and 3 months later, I got a grant and continued working there with the homeless. And I was really thinking, oh, this is going to be so much more cheerful than working with cancer children who were facing death. And actually, it turned out to be much more challenging because many of the children in the shelters had no role model for anything healthy. Many of their parents were addicted or living very unhealthy lifestyles and not really evolved themselves, sadly, and living in terrible poverty, like generations after generations. Anyway, I didn't explain that very well, but...
yes, you did. That's very clear.
Okay. So the children who were living in the shelters were totally out of control and had no idea about taking care of the materials or themselves, or a lot of fighting, a lot of... it was very, very, very challenging. And I felt like it took me at least a year to start to get under the skin of what it felt like to be a homeless child, and to begin to really have empathy. Because these are children who, many of them were parentified. They had to raise their own siblings. Often they took care of their parents. They had no friends, because you can't invite a friend home when you don't have a home. They changed schools on an average of 4 times a year. No, like, Christmas decorations in the closet, no routines, nothing that we take for granted that creates a healthy family. So these kids struggle, and they have so much shame, filled with shame and guilt. So finally I began to understand, and by then the program was going really strong, and I had requests from 2 other shelters to start another project, one in Moran and one in, I forget where the other one was, maybe also San Francisco. So by then, after a year, I was in 3 shelters. Luckily for the social studies students, I was able to quit that job. And I had raised money to do this work with homeless children. And after 5 years, we were in 7 different shelters in 3 counties, and I had started hiring people to help out, had a board of directors, and became a nonprofit. And sadly, for me, after 19 years with the organization, I never worked with kids anymore. I was just the boss, the manager, the fundraiser, and I really wasn't happy. So that's why I left. That's why I left, and was lucky to get a Fulbright scholarship to take me on my next adventure.
Now, you got a Fulbright scholarship. How did you get that, and what was it for?
I got that in, in 2007. And I had heard about Fulbright scholarships. I didn't think I would qualify because I don't have a PhD, and most of the, that's one of the requirements in most of the fields. I applied to do art therapy, to teach art therapy, and I wanted to go to Africa. And I really wanted to go to Kenya, where I'd fallen in love with the country and the culture. So I called the Africa office in Washington, D.C., and they said, don't apply for Kenya. It's so competitive. There's like 450 applicants for 10 spots. Is there any other country you're aligned with? And I said, yeah, I've taught at the University of Zimbabwe. And they said, apply there. You have a much better chance. There are, last year there were 20 applicants for 3 spots. So I applied for Zimbabwe. I got the fellowship. I was approved. And I went to Washington, D.C. for the ceremony to let you know what you're supposed to do as a Fulbright person and how you're supposed to look and dress and everything. I got to the ceremony. There were about 180 people there who were going to be sent all over Africa. I was the only one with a purple scarf. I thought, oh boy, what am I getting into?
You were the only one with what?
With a purple scarf. I felt very, very different. It's all academic. Anyway, so I'm in this hall with all these very smart people, and the main dude came up to me and he said, "We can't send you to Zimbabwe. The country is too unsafe right now. It's not secure. What's your second choice?" And I said, "Kenya." He said, "Okay, you can go to Kenya." So that's how I got my Fulbright to Kenya.
Wow.
But that's like the story of my life.
Wow.
Incredibly lucky and like through the back door type thing. Yeah.
Wow.
I've grown used to it.
You know, Elin, her uncle and cousins, her aunt and uncle are in Kenya, and her cousins were there. I think they're in the United States now. So she's been there. Kelly's been there. He's Uncle Randy. He's an eye doctor, and he got some. He'd go around setting up eye clinics, and maybe in more than just Kenya. And he got some big grant to do that, to keep doing it. Anyway, and Steve Tipton, I don't think you know him. He's before your time.
Yeah.
His wife, maybe Gretchen. She's some sort of. I mean, her whole life of scholarship has been in Kenya, and Steve. I don't know what they do. Steve's like one of the most prominent sociologists in America. And he told me about going to Kenya. This is a long time ago. And it was like going from the airport to get into town. They had to run through a roadblock where people were shooting at them. And have you had experiences like that?
I have been held up at gunpoint, and I've had a few scary experiences. I once got held up at gunpoint, for example.
Like how? What's the setting?
Well, I was staying in a beautiful neighborhood with friends who lived there for many, many years. And every day I would take a walk, like a couple of kilometers up and back the road. And this particular day, there was nobody else on the road. I don't remember why. It was hot. It was the middle of the afternoon. And I got to the end, which was a dead end, kind of a cul-de-sac. I don't know what you call it. Anyway, I got to the end of the road, and these 2 boys on a motorbike came around the corner towards me just as I was turning around. And they came right up to me. There was nobody else around. And they held up this gun and they said, "We're going to hurt you. We want your money. We're going to hurt you." And I totally freaked out. I did what you're not supposed to do. I started to scream. And I had about $1 on me and an old phone that was taped up with masking tape. And they ripped my money belt from me, which held those two things, and ran off. But I was terrified.
Yeah.
And then another car came around the corner, a big white SUV, and this guy, I flagged the guy. I said, please, let's follow those guys on the motorcycle. They just robbed me. They have a gun. And the guy's like, are you out of your mind? Like, I'm going to follow them? They have a gun? No, my darling. He kept saying, my darling, just get in the car. I'll drive you home. My darling. Oh, I don't like it when things like this happen to people, to tourists. And anyway,
yeah,
it was scary.
Yeah.
Very scary.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And do you have any other Kenya stories?
Oh, I have a million stories. I mean,
how about one more?
Oh, here's a good one. So I don't have too much fear of being in odd, remote places.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't scare me at all. In fact, I love it. The stranger, the better. And so I was very, very comfortable working in the slums in Kibera, which is kind of dumb. I mean, it's very naive. And I was lucky that nothing happened to me. I bought a car, so I would drive a white woman driving around the slums. A little hard to describe, but it's packed with people, just teeming with people. And you have to drive really slowly. And anyway, so I would go and work with kids on the weekends. And then I made friends with some young Kenyans who were working with me. And after work, we'd go to this bar called the Stage Inn and have a few beers. And it's like the most seedy place on earth. You can't even imagine how seedy this bar is. And I loved it. They play this incredibly great African music and dancing and drinking beer. I love it there. I still go. And I sent my son once when he was in Kenya, and I told him to go to the bar. And he wrote to me, Mom, you're never going back to that place. It's so unsafe and so bad. Anyway, one time I left there, and it was dark already, which I usually didn't do. I was driving by myself, and I got lost trying to drive back to the city center. And I'm driving, and I couldn't find my way. And it was like a very quiet area, and there was no one around. And then I see 3 young people walking, and I drive up to them, and I said, oh, my God, I'm lost. Can you guys get in the car with me and help direct me to the city center? And they were students. So they get in the car, and they're like, where are you coming from? And I said, Kibera. And they said, what were you doing? I said, I was drinking. And they said, stop the car. We're getting out. We're driving with a lost white woman who's been drinking. You crazy? So anyway, one of them did stay with me and got me back home. But that was another story. I have a ton of stories, really.
Well,
yeah. But some of them are like X-rated, so I can't share them.
Some of them are forbidden to share.
Well, I can tell you, but I'm not going to say it on
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, all right. I want to go back further. In 1981, you got back from traveling around the world. Now, I met you around 1972?
Yeah, exactly.
At Tassajara.
Yes.
And Steve Weintraub, I remember, drove us back to the city.
Yes.
And Was that the first time you had come? Rick had been around Zen Center for a few years at that point.
Yeah.
And was that when was the first time you came? I guess you came to visit Rick at Zen Center or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And I don't know why I was at Tassar. I was the work leader in the city. Maybe there'd been a Shuso ceremony or something at Tassar. But anyway, was that the first time you had come to the Zen Center realm?
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. And I remember you were in your not speaking time.
Oh, right. That was 6 months. That went on 6 months. Yeah. Wow.
Yep. And I remember that very well. And I remember becoming friends with Daya.
Oh, wonderful. Daya, who was Diane back then.
Yes, and Betsy.
Yeah, Betsy was Elizabeth Sawyer.
I know.
Right.
And yeah. And one thing I remember so clearly is I was on my way to Peru. And somebody had once told me that they saw colors in the mountains in Peru that didn't exist anywhere else. And I was like crazy to see those colors.
I remember that now.
Do you?
I remember you really wanted to go to Peru. I remember that. I don't remember the colors thing.
You told me, you talked about, in your, well, I don't know, without words, I guess you wrote things, I forget. But you told me that that was kind of a waste of my time. And, I should stay at Zen Center and explore within, blah, 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 blah. And
really?
Yeah, you told me some garbage,
Yeah,
like about,
what a true believer.
You told me all this garbage about,
Well, I liked you. I wanted you to stay.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, it totally didn't work. I thought you were an idiot, What are you talking about?
Yeah, I had an Etch-a-Sketch.
Oh, that was it.
Right. So I'd write on it and then rip it up, and that would erase it and write again.
Right. So, it's bullshit to go to Peru, What a waste of time. You just explore your own inner blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, go to hell.
That's funny. Yeah, I'd been in Peru. I was in Peru in 1965. So what did you do? But I was just there briefly, passing through.
I stayed 2 years in Peru.
And what'd you do there?
Well, I ended up living in a very, very remote area. This is probably the best year of my life, actually. And I was so lucky. I lived in Cusco for a year in the town, and I made art, and I sold art, and I worked in a little school for kids, blah, blah, blah. And there was a couple who would come into town once a month to get supplies. They were French. And they were living in a very remote place sent by UNESCO to tape the most pure indigenous music of Peru. So they were in this area, and I was just crazy to find out more about it. And they'd come once a month, as I said, and I asked them if they would take me up to their place where they stayed. And finally, they had to ask permission of the elders and have a council meeting, and they took me up to this area, and it was very hard to get to. You got on a train, 4 hours, and the train slowed down, didn't actually stop. And then we'd get off there, and I had a dog and a cat. I had to throw them out the window, and then wait for a truck.
Wait a minute. And you were traveling with a dog and a cat?
Yeah. Lucy and Roberto.
Oh, my God. Gee.
So we'd wait for a truck, and sometimes the truck would come that day or not. And then you'd have to walk 8 hours to this community where these two French people were staying. And it's over 12,000 feet up. It's absolutely breathtaking, exquisite area. Anyway, well, I was there with them for a month, and then the woman got sick, and they had to go back to France. And I asked me to stay in their little adobe house, taking care of things till they got back, and they never came back. So I had a house there in the very high, they call it the Altiplano of Peru, where I lived for a year with Lucy and Roberto.
Wow.
Yeah, and I learned Quechua. I learned Quechua from the children, and I did everything they did. I would work half a day. I was stationed with the children, planting potatoes and harvesting and taking the llamas out and those kind of things, going fishing and like that.
Wow.
Yeah, that was something.
Wow. And then after a year, what'd you do?
I came back to this. I fell in love, which was like sort of a pain in the ass, but you know how it is.
Yeah.
One of my visits to Cusco, I fell in love with a Dutchman who I ended up marrying in India the following year.
Is that right?
And, yeah. And we went to Amsterdam and lived on a houseboat for a few years.
Wow. I forgot all about that. Wow. I think I used to know that.
You might have met him.
Yeah.
You might have met him. We're still very good friends.
Oh, that's actually good.
Yeah.
And so, wow, there's a lot of Dutch people here.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, because the Holland or the Netherlands colonized Indonesia, and so I've known Dutch people who were third generation here and stuff like that.
Whoa.
So you lived with him for a few years, and then what happened?
Oh, and then I got a job. It's so funny going over all this with you, David.
Well, it's great. It's so interesting. It's terrific.
So we're living in Holland, and I never could quite get used to Holland. Oh, do you remember Adine?
Huh?
Do you remember Adine?
Yeah, of course I do. I'm in touch with Adine now.
You're kidding?
No.
All right. Well, I'm the one who met her in Peru.
Oh.
Yeah. She was visiting her sister who lived in Peru, and then. She and Adine and I became friends, and that's how she came to know about Zen Center.
Is that right? She's in Holland now.
I know.
I think she lives on an island. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I'm still in touch with her sister, who lived, we were very close. Sister lives in Australia. Anyway, what did you ask? Oh, yeah. So after the houseboat, I never felt really at home in Amsterdam, too cold and stiff. And I just came from one of the most amazing, beautiful, natural, pristine places on earth where you could basically touch the sky. You didn't want to move. All you wanted to do was look at the sky all day long. It was so gorgeous. And here I am in the city of Amsterdam. So I got a job working on a windsurfer magazine on Ibiza, on the island of Ibiza in Spain. So I moved there for 2 years.
Where?
Spain. You know the island?
Oh, in Spain.
Ibiza? Yeah.
Now, so did you and your husband break up?
Well, we weren't very together. He came, but by then we lived together, but it wasn't like much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We lived together. He came and stayed there. Anyway, so I got a job on this windsurfer magazine. The way I got it was I heard that this magazine was needing a photographer to travel to Africa, to Senegal, like in a day. Somehow I heard that.
Mm-hmm.
Dutch people don't operate that way. I knew that. I knew that you're not going to find a Dutch person who's going to say, okay, I'll go to Senegal tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I went to meet the head of the magazine, and I said, I'd like the job, and I'm free to go to Africa tomorrow, and I'm a good photographer. Of course, then I had to borrow all the photography equipment. But he said, no, thanks, that's okay. And I said, you're not hiring me because I'm a woman. And he looked at me and he said, okay, you have the job. So that's how I got that one. And I had to borrow all the equipment, and I was off to Africa, and I took really great pictures. So then they had decided to move their offices to Spain, to this island, Ibiza. And so that's what I did.
Now, did you say a windsurfing magazine?
Yes.
There's a lot of that here. Oh, yeah. We live near a beach. There's windsurfing there all the time. I had one guy, and then nobody'd done this before. There's an area where people swim, and usually I'm the only one there. People don't swim really. They just go stand in the water, man. This dude came within 2 yards of me. He's going like 50 miles an hour. I think he was sort of saying hello. It was really good. But as he went by, I said, hey, man, too close. Don't do that.
Oh, my God.
But windsurfing is very popular here.
Well, this was when it was just beginning to be popular. We're still in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to go to Senegal and take pictures of windsurfers next to traditional boats, like to do that kind of like whatever artistic thing.
Is Senegal on the ocean?
Yeah.
Which side? Is it on the west?
It's on the west.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So they sent me to this fancy all-inclusive hotel. I had an expense account and blah, blah, blah. And every morning I'd go to the buffet breakfast and fill a basket with huge amounts of food and walk about a mile and distribute it in a village to all the people who lived there who were hungry.
So how long were you there?
Well, so we were in Spain. I was in Spain for 2 years. Then I went to India and...
Why'd you go to India?
Oh, well, when I was living in Spain on the island, these 2 llamas came to do a course. And I was desperate to get away from my boyfriend at that point. And I
Your
asked
boyfriend? Are you talking about your husband?
Oh, we got married later in India, actually. Yeah.
Oh, you weren't married yet. Oh.
No.
So you were desperate to get away from him, and then you married him.
Yeah, well, I'm not so smart. So I wanted him to do this course for 2 weeks so I could have some time to breathe and to just be myself. But he didn't want to, so I decided to do the course, even though I wasn't really interested. Tibetan Buddhism. So I arrived at the course. I was late, of course. Everybody else was sitting there looking like perfect meditators. And there were about 200 people in the hall. And I went in, and I took one look at Lama Yeshe, who was one of the teachers, and I literally felt the earth move under my feet. Like I couldn't keep my balance. And that was it. I mean, he was my teacher, and I absolutely love and adore Lama Yeshe. And the day after the retreat, I packed up and followed him to Nepal, and spent like 6 months in his monastery, and then my boyfriend met me in India, and we were together there for a while.
Where in India?
So, well, he met me in Delhi, and we went to Rishikesh, and in that area.
Yeah.
Northern. But here's another really interesting story, actually, if you want to hear about Lama Yeshe.
Yeah.
Lama Yeshe is really my very powerful guide. He has a center in Boulder Creek, California, as well as Nepal, and also all over the world he has centers. So when I was working with children with cancer, and I was almost 9 months pregnant with my daughter, someone came up and found me in the lunchroom and said, I know you're interested in Buddhism. There's a Lama in intensive care. And I immediately knew it was Lama Yeshe. I had heard that he had heart problems. So he...
Where is this?
California Pacific Medical Center.
Oh, wow. What year?
This was in like 84.
Oh, okay. Go on.
So he was there, and he was dying. And so because I had my hospital badge, I got to spend the last week of his life with him. And my daughter was born the day of his cremation, and her middle name is Yeshe. I'll never understand how that all happened. You know, it's one of those things that so huge. How Lama Yeshe ended up in my hospital, and none of his students, you know, many thousands, weren't allowed to see him because I had the hospital badge. I could just sit there all day long. And he asked me to rub his feet and this and that. And the day before he died, they flew him to another hospital in Los Angeles for some reason, I forget, and he died there. But I got to spend that week just being with him. Can you imagine? With your teacher? Oh my God. I mean, so many blessings have fallen down on my head. It's just remarkable, and too much, you know, too much to hold sometimes. I mean, seriously, too much. And I just have this wonderful luck. Like His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, was in San Francisco doing teachings, and I didn't want to go with, 800 other people and pay a lot of money, so I didn't. And I was walking in Berkeley by Chez Panisse with my dog, and all of a sudden there's all these Tibetan people standing on the sidewalk, and His Holiness comes down the steps from Chez Panisse and comes right over to us to pet my dog and to bless me. Yeah.
That's great.
David, what kind of a life is this? Do you get it? I mean, seriously. Oh my God.
What year was that?
Well, my kids were born already, so probably about 1990, 91.
Oh, that's
I don't know.
That's neat. Well, in terms of the chronology here, that you were last in India with your husband.
Yeah.
Your Dutch husband.
I got married on an elephant. I mean, I came into the ceremony on an elephant.
Yeah. Oh, that's far. What town?
Outside of Delhi, not too far outside of Delhi. We were staying in an ashram. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, but Franciscus was a miserable husband, and but he's a very, very close friend now. So it's all.
Yeah.
It's all with it now.
The ashram you were staying in, is there some teacher associated with it?
Yeah. His holy, what did they call him? Darshan Singh. Darshan Singh, S-I-N-G-H. But he was a bit shady, too. But
Singh, that's Sikh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a Buddhist thing.
You had a Sikh wedding.
Yeah, it was, it was adorable.
Yeah.
But we had all our money stolen. So we went to this ashram to get fed and to stay till we could get some money to get out of India.
Uh-huh. How'd you get all your money stolen?
So, my boyfriend was an idiot, and he went to change it on the black market and came back to the hotel with 3 cents left.
Oh, black market. Was that the standard way to do things?
On the street. No, I don't know.
Sometimes black market is the correct way.
Yeah.
But
yes.
In my Asian travels were later, and it was not the correct way. The established money changers were the ones to use.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And ATMs. It's been ATMs for a long time. I pay rent here with ATM. Go make 50 withdrawals. It's absolutely the best exchange rate. It was $500 less than getting a wire transfer.
Whoa! Wow.
Yeah.
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 Well.
So I don't keep money here. Yeah. But.
Good.
So you got married. So what then? There you are in Delhi.
Yeah. And then I got a telegram from my stepfather. Here's what happened. I called home, which I didn't do very often. And my stepfather said, "Oh, you must have gotten the letter." And I said, "What letter?" He said, "I sent you a letter. Your mom has cancer. So can you come home and help me take care of her?" So I flew to New York.
What about your husband?
He went back to Holland.
All right.
And then he met me in New York after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I came to take care of my mom.
Where in New York?
Brooklyn. She lived in Brooklyn.
You come from Brooklyn. You were born in Brooklyn.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. So I went back to my family home. I stayed in my bedroom where I used to listen to 8 hours of Joan Baez a day. And, there I was.
That's so great.
And I was just like in India, like becoming all India type person. So I was very fanatic and I cooked for my mom, but I wouldn't use any pots that had ever touched meat. So we had to buy our own meat pot.
Well, and then you use, in the Jewish neighborhoods, you have the meat restaurants and the dairy restaurants. You just get one of the dairy pots.
Kosher. Yeah, kosher.
Yeah.
Right. So I did juices and I did this and I did that and I only had one set of clothes, which was an Afghan skirt that was pink in the front and gray in the back. And I could make it into 4 skirts because I could turn it around so in front it looked half gray, half pink, or I could turn it around so it was gray in the front and pink. So it didn't always look like the same skirt, but it was ragged and it had mirrors on it and blah, blah, blah. And my mom
Excuse me, I have a question. Did you wash it from time to time?
Occasionally. But my mom is not, like an Afghan skirt type of woman. She's like Bergdorf Goodman, Lord and Taylor. So she finally said, "Honey, you're not in India anymore." And I wore my mother's clothes, like pins. Right? Yeah, I did. And I was trying so hard to do it right, fresh juices and pinstriped shirts, button down, and the whole thing. Anyway.
Pinstripe shirts, button down. I think of that as a male thing.
Not in those days.
Really?
Anyway,
all right.
I wore my mother's blazer and all that shit. So.
Sounds like your mother was a transvestite.
You know what? I never thought of that before. I hope so. That would have been great. Anyway, no, she was just very conservative. And I went and got my hair cut, at her salon. I looked like a fool. Basically, I looked like a fool. But anyway, I finally came to my senses, and for a thank you, she gave me a ticket one way to San Francisco to visit Rick and my sister. So that's how I ended up in San Francisco.
Wait a minute. What about your mother?
Yeah, she got better. Better.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. And then the boyfriend, Franz, he followed me out to San Francisco.
Wait, boyfriend?
Husband, whatever.
Husband.
Whatever.
Right.
Whatever. Yeah. Yeah, he followed me to San Francisco, and we were together for a little bit, but not much. Yeah. It was on a Gwenka course. You know who Gwenka is?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. Okay, it was on a Gwenka course in Mendocino. I don't know, some months after I arrived in San Francisco, that I realized I was pregnant, and Franz was the cook on the course, and I was pregnant from Jay. So.
Oh, you were pregnant from Jay. So,
yeah.
Now, is this while your husband was there?
He was around, yeah.
He was around. All right. So you and Jay, Jay Simoneaux, you and Jay, how long had you been sneaking around?
A while. I mean, yeah, he was so handsome. Come on, give me a break. It's not my fault, David.
No, I think it's great. I just asked how long had you all been noodling?
Well, Franz and I we weren't living together. We weren't really together anymore. But Jay, I don't know, I think he was still married to Annie, actually.
Oh, but I forgot. Annie who? Remind me.
Annie Somerville.
Oh my gosh, I forgot all about that. Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks. Go on. Then who went on to become the head cook at Green's Restaurant for decades.
That's right.
Oh, I love her. She's wonderful.
Right. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call each other our wife-in-law when I see her.
Oh, that's funny.
So Jay. I was the best thing that ever happened to Jay. He needed it. He needed an infusion of, let things go, chill the fuck out, baby.
Yeah.
Come on, bro. Just let it go. So, he was really attracted to my wild spirit until he wasn't. And that was that.
Well, how long were you all together?
I'm not sure because things got a little fuzzy, but I think we were together for about 9 years.
Yeah, I remember visiting you.
Yeah.
And
right.
How many children did you have? 2?
We have 2, yeah.
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 And where are they?
Becca lives in Oakland. She's a teacher. And my son is a fireman in Aptos near Santa Cruz.
Wow. Cool place to be.
He's a surfer. He's got 2 kids.
So it's pretty clear now you and Jay got together and you were together. And then I remember Elin and I, when we came back from Japan, and we spent a year in Santa Fe, and then 93 we moved to Gerstle Park neighborhood, 1 block from you, and I saw you quite a bit then.
Right.
with Nina living in back. And
exactly.
And that was after Jay.
Yes, that was after Jay.
So wait a minute. You were well into your work then. That's right. Because that was 92, 93. So Gloria, we've gone full circle here.
I know. And I live in the cottage in the backyard where Nina used to live. That's my home.
Oh, that's where you live now?
Yeah. I remodeled it, and it's very perfect, small, and fabulous, and I rent out the main house.
You know, Elin and I lived there from 93 to early 96. Late 93 to early 96. And then Katrinka and I'd been living in John Terrence Barn for years. And we moved into Gerstle Park for 2 years.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I saw you then too.
Yeah, and sometimes at the Panama Hotel.
Yeah, because she was sort of helping to run that place. That was great.
I know.
That was great.
I know.
Yeah.
You know he sold it, right?
Yeah, sure, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan.
And it's really pretty crappy now. But anyway.
Yeah. That's what happens. Nothing lasts the way you want it to. Boy, that's really true here, I'll tell you.
I can imagine.
Yeah, you shouldn't get attached to anything because it just changes so much. But I don't know. There's been enough sameness and good stuff. Keep going with the people people. I mean, it's so stable. It's so peaceful. The crime rate is so low. Katrinka will come walking home at night in dark streets and we won't worry about it, you know.
Yeah.
And America to me is just frightening. And even Gerstle Park, I did not let her walk home, and she didn't want to, from the Panama Hotel to our apartment, which was like 4 blocks. At night, I'd go meet her, and we'd walk together.
Well, now there's a lot of crime around here.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's terrible. Yeah. Well, I was in Bali. I don't remember exactly when, but then I went back with my kids. I think Becca was 6, so that would be 30 years ago. Holy shit. Yeah, I went back for the second time with the kids. And I couldn't believe, even in like 2 years, how much it had changed, David.
Yeah.
Like, I could not believe my eyes in 2 years.
Yeah, it's constantly changing. I was here 30 years ago, too, exactly.
Really?
For 2 months with Elin. We came.
Oh, wow.
When we moved we'd been in Japan 4 years, and we were going back to America, and it really wasn't more expensive to go through Bali, and it was so cheap that it was just free to come here for 2 months after being in Japan and going to America. Well, Gloria, what you're doing with Harambee Arts is wonderful, and what you did before Harambee Arts is wonderful. And I'm really happy to hear you go over that, because mainly we get together, we don't talk about stuff like that. I don't know what we talk about. So I learned a lot, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks, David. It's a real treasure to connect with you like this. And it's been really fun too. Because, like, telling my life story to someone, telling it to you, it just feels really special, and I loved it. So thank you.
Me too. And well, I'll be keeping up with you, and
all right.
Good luck with the film on Harambee Arts, and maybe when it comes out, we can do another one to plug it. Or anytime you want to plug something special like that, let me know.
Okay. I'm going to send you a very short 30-second video about the film.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you guys are really happy there.
Well, yeah. It's don't want to leave.
Yeah.
So we're both still active and breathing. Very good.
That's very good. That's excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, lots of love to both, and thank you so much.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, and take care. And
All right. Big hugs.
yeah. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, thanks a lot, Gloria. That was really great. Really enjoyed it, and keep up the good work. This has been a Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Puba of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from Sleepy Sanur with Doghead Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.